is correct. Today we are reviewing the S.H Monsterarts Godzilla 2019 edition. Now, there is a reason why obviously this looks different to the 2014 version. You've got the non-canon reason and the reason they actually gave us in the comic books and the extended lore as to why he looks different now. Now, in the comic books, it's discovered he has an ancestor called Dagon, which fought a creature that was called the Jinsen Mushi, which is later discovered to be the Alpha Muto. Now, the Alpha Muto actually preys on the Godzilla species and lays its eggs, alien style, without a giant face, however, via ovipositors into them, and they grow and feed off the radiation, etc. So Dagon, rest in peace, fell prey to the Muto Prime. So the events of 2014 kind of ties in, in a back-around way with the comic book, and the comic book ties in with the origin story, so we know where the Mutos kind of come from in the past. But in the comic book, it's explained that 2 eggs were laid. So unless both of those eggs actually came from Dagon in the movie, it might explain the reason why we have the 3rd Muto at the end of the King of the Monsters, because obviously, as we know, one of the Mutos in 2014 came out of a chrysalis, another one escaped from the cave and the giant skeleton, so that is a possibility where the other Muto came from, and why it looks a bit different. But anyway, in the events in the comic book, our current Godzilla, fights the Jinsen Mushi, aka Muto Prime, and via an ability the Muto Prime has, he uses some weird kind of form of sonic screech or scream, and almost, wrecks him and completely destroys his dorsal plates. And without the help by Monarch, he probably wouldn't have survived, but he manages to get the Jinsen Mushi on his shoulders and uses a proto-form of his nuclear pulse. And in between the events, obviously, the time period skip, his dorsal plates grow back to the shape they are now. Now, the in-canon explanation is because he radiates the atomic energy. It's almost like a volcano, so, it overflows. So this is why we get an ununiform, shape to his new dorsal plates. Obviously, the uncanon reason and the real-world explanation is because they wanted him to look more like, his origins and the Japanese style of dorsal plates. So it's a cool little thing I wanted to start the video off with. So if you're interested in, in the comic books and things and the past lore and the world of Godzilla, definitely hit up wherever you can, buying the comic books, or even just go on the wiki pages. I believe there's a YouTube channel, Wikizilla, that does some very informative videos about the past incarnations of the different Godzillas, the villains, the different monsters. It's very cool to look at. I definitely recommend it, and if you can track down the comic book is called Godzilla Aftershock. Very cool stuff. Anyway, getting to the figure itself. That is the reason why we've got the changes now, so they've updated the design. Monsterarts yet again have done a very good job of replicating it, although there are a few inconsistencies across the sculpt. For instance, his head seems to be a tad bigger than it should be on the body. But overall, they've done very well. They've done all the changes that were explained. He's now got rid of the elephant-style feet, and they've actually got the claws. He's not too chunky, although he's not as chunky as you would say he is in the film. But they've done a very good representation. Obviously, they've got to work with articulation points and take that into the design. But I think they've done a very good job. Uniformly, the colour, as you can see through, I can see through my viewfinder. If you look at him without any extra lights or flashes or anything, he just looks like a uniform grey. You may be able to pick up a hint of colour here and there, but when you see him with a flash close-up, it really brings out all the different paint and everything that was used in the application. And so they've done a very good job on the head with the eyes. I know there's a few quality control issues, especially if you're thinking of buying knockoff versions of this. The joints are just useless. Unless you're going to be buying the Heisei era knockoff King Ghidorah, I wouldn't bother with KOs unless you can fix the joints and you want to use them as customs. Now, I know a lot of people bought this version, and changed the dorsal plates to give them the blue look, from where he's got the intimidation display. I like the fact that it actually came with an effects part kit, but it's very hit and miss, because my guy over time seems to have a little bit of a loose head now. So if I take off that jaw, pop in the parts effect, his head wants to droop down, and it's really annoying. If I'd have set that up day one, it probably would have stayed in that position, but as time's gone on, it's just little things that you've got to remember when you're collecting these type of figures. Little things like this will happen. You may get a loose joint down the line and everything, but if you're thinking of buying KO, just remember it's going to be loose joints all round. It's not going to be a fun day for everyone. If you're going to use them for spare parts, that's perfectly good. Good. You probably get some joint tightening material and be very good for spare parts. But other than that, I wouldn't bother with KOs, like I said, unless it's the Heisei era King Ghidorah. But this guy, Monsterarts have done a very good job of recreating what you see on the film. The design aesthetic, everything, I said, is very accurate to what you get. There's just a few bits and bobs. Now, I'll go into articulation, although, in all fairness, I may not bother going into articulation and things in the future, because once you've seen one of my reviews and you've shown, I've shown you how, these figures can be manipulated. The articulation, all the Monsterarts figures are pretty much the same. The only difference will be when it comes to the tail. Some of the Godzilla, especially Shin and Earth, have very, very long tails. So when it comes down to posability and things for tails, they're going to be a bit different depending what you buy. But they all of them are on ball joints. But just be careful when you're posing them, because if I show you, sometimes they just pop off. But that's what you get with ball joints. It can't be helped. And with a little bit of pressure, they can just pop back on. And it's perfectly fine to me. But you can get some really nice tail poses with this guy. It can be sweeping back. You can move the legs down. Have him hunched over. Have his head up a little bit more. You can get his arms out. You can get some really nice cool poses with this guy. Now, unless he is weighted, or you manage to get the weight forward, he doesn't really want to stay upright. You kind of have to lean him against something or something like this. But the new 2021 version with the new blue paint job up and down the whole sculpt has kind of fixed this issue, because he's got even better posability. I've seen some of the promo shots. A couple of people who've pre-ordered in from different sites have already got their figures already. Mine are still on pre-order. I've got them on payment plans, so I'm not going to receive them yet. Not a big deal. But we do what we can to afford the figures we love. And so he's got some nice range of motion in the head, the jaw. The jaw can pop off. You can put the other jaw in, put the beam effect in. It's just a glorious thing to behold. But yeah, the newer version, which is the 2021 version, you can actually spread the legs so far apart, you can even replicate, where he's on the ground crawling, going after Kong. Where he's bit one of Kong's legs, and Kong's going backwards. You can replicate that pose, and I think that's a good thing. That shows that Monsterarts are actually listening, and they want to give us, that choice of extra posability, so we can display our figures pretty cool. I mean, with this guy, I normally have him on the shelf like this. He'll be, he's roaring upward pose. I've got him sat in front of Kevin, which I will be reviewing at a later date. Now, for those of you who don't know who Kevin is, that's King Ghidorah, the legendary version, not the old, the older versions from the other Japanese movies, but the legendary interpretation of this new world. In future videos, I may just, use synonyms, and I'll refer to this guy as the legendary Goji from the future. So you know that this is the legendary MonsterVerse version of Godzilla. Same with Kong. Although I think his in-universe name is Titanus Kong, because they're all Titans now. This guy's Titanus Gojira. I don't believe Kevin ever really got a name. I think he was just called either Monster Zero or Ghidorah once I found out who he was. But it is very cool. Now, the pros and cons with this guy. One is space. If you don't have the space for this kind of figure, I'd definitely not recommend it. If you're thinking more into collecting statues and things, that's probably maybe the way you want to go. But when it comes to X Plus and things like that, the X Plus figures are like way up here. This guy is about 6 inches tall. With his tail, he's about 12 inches long. Some of the other Godzilla figures in the collection, like Shin and other things, even they can stand more upright. So they're more 7 inches to about 15, 16 inches with the tail. So just bear that in mind when you're going to be posing. If you can have them in cabinets or whatever else, you may not end up with a lot of room. So depending on what version of Godzilla you want to get, different iterations that Monsterarts have done, the classic, the 54, the 90s version, the Heisei era, the Biollante one, Millennium, the reissue, the 2002. Depending where you want to start and where you want to go, just try and factor that in, that size may be an issue for this, as well as price points. Now, if you're thinking of buying NECA, that's not a problem, buy NECA. Some of the NECA figures were good. I own a few NECA figures in my collection. They're not too bad. It's just they're not as posable as these guys. Although over the time, NECA actually started fixing that issue and they started adding more posability in the knee joints and things like that. But sad news is NECA have lost the license. So if you're looking for a cheaper alternative, I hate to say the name because I always have to feel like I need to wash it out, wash the name out after I say it. But the only cheaper alternatives you're going to get now are the Playmates versions or the vinyl versions. While they are cheaper, they're not as detailed, they're not as articulated. So if you are thinking of getting a figure, I would go NECA or Monsterarts. But remember, NECA no longer don't have a license, so sometimes some of the NECA figures can even be more expensive than the Monsterarts figures, which is a weird way around about. For instance, I've got one of the NECA 54 poster art box versions, and I was shocked to realise I only paid what £19.99 in UK money for it when it got released, and he shoots up to £100 odd now, just because it's the promo version with the poster art box. I've got the Godzilla vs Space Godzilla NECA version there. He comes up more green than anything else. I always thought of repainting that guy, because I don't remember any Godzillas being that kind of green. But I've got him too, and he can command quite a high price now as well. So bear in mind, depending what Godzilla you want to get and where you want to go, that is the pitfall you're going to have. How much disposable income do you want to put on to what you want to collect? Now, I left the collecting game for quite some time. I didn't really want to buy anything brand new. I don't know. Falling out with one or two people, mainly trolls, on a group. I was modding at the time, and they were going to come after me and then come after the group, and I had to leave because I didn't want the group taken down. So I just took a back seat to collecting, and I wasn't going to buy anything else. But not long after not King of Monsters, Godzilla vs Kong come out, and then all the leaks for the figures started to come out, and then obviously we've got Godzilla Singular Point. Monsterarts are also going to be releasing the Final Wars version of Godzilla, so it's quite an exciting time for a collector, and the only thing that's really keeping me in the collecting game probably is the Godzilla figures. So I'm going to pretty much review whatever I own Godzilla wise, and as soon as Kong shows up I'll be reviewing him, as soon as the 2021 version shows up I'll be reviewing him, and as soon as we get the glorious die-cast Mecha Godzilla I'll be reviewing him too. But that's not going to be until December, February next year, until my Mecha Godzilla finally gets released and comes obviously in the post to me. But if you are thinking of getting Godzilla figures, it's not a bad one to start with. It will command a high price now because you can't buy these retail anymore, but you can get some cool poses with this guy. It's just like I said, it's down to space, the aesthetic, what version of Godzilla. I only buy the Godzilla figures that mean something to me personally, and because I love the new, legendary iteration of Godzilla, for me, it was a no-brainer. I wanted this guy in my collection, and I ended up getting Kevin, Mothra, and Rodan. So I got, the whole, the set of the Monsterarts run. It's just a shame. Like I said, they make them, and then obviously they run out, and then all the prices start going. It was like Ghidorah now, Kevin. If you want to get him brand new, you're looking at about £400 odd. It's just ridiculous. I was lucky to get him when I did. I think I paid $150 just over retail because I missed a pre-order. And a guy on a local Facebook bought one, but he didn't really like it because he found out it was more of a statue. There's no real posability to Ghidorah apart from his three heads and his feet and his tail. It's just like a glorified statue. And he basically wanted the money he paid for it back, so I pretty much got a brand new one for a little bit above retail because I had to pay for shipping and the PayPal fees and everything on top. So I got lucky with that. But if you're going to start with the Godzilla figures, it's down to you whether you want to do Monsterarts or NECA. Now, if you give me a second, I'll give you an interpretation of what the quality is like between Monsterarts and NECA. Now, I'll keep this boy here, just so you can see what a Monsterarts version of a figure looks like compared to a NECA. And as you can see here, this is the NECA 2019 version 2, which is aptly named Atomic Blast. Comes with a breath effect. Very cool in itself. I said this guy came with a breath effect too, but he didn't come with the all blue paint job. But just so you can see, I'll bring him over. NECA's effort is not bad. It's a nice paint job all the way through, but like I said, this is something I'll review at a later date. The paint on the feet's a little bit different. A few things are a bit more stylized. You can still open and close his mouth. It just doesn't have the posability of Monsterarts one. You can rotate these, but the arms only move up here. He's got some pivot on the wrists. He does have some movement in the knees, but you can't really do what you can do with this guy. But he's still cool on the shelf nonetheless. Tail, pretty much similar to the Monsterarts versions. It's all on a ball joint, although it takes a little bit more effort to get him moving, but once he's moved, still cool. But you have to be careful, like I said, with that one, because these have the same issue as those ones do. But it's cool nonetheless. And last but not least, I'll give you a close-up view of the 2019 Monsterarts one, just so you can see the paint job. Now, obviously, you just saw the NECA Atomic Blast version, and that replicated, you know, his whole glowing blue thing quite nicely. But for a base uniform paint job on this guy, I think Monsterarts have done really well. The fine details are nicely painted on. You know, the sealing of the paint was done quite nicely. Although you can see, like here, there's a few colour differences, but looking at the naked eye, you know, without a flash or a really, really bright light on it, you can't really tell the difference. It's only when you get a flash right in there you can see some bits are a tad different colours than the other. But it doesn't take away from the fact that he looked glorious on the shelf. They've done very nice with the paint job. He's a very cool figure to have. So if you're thinking of getting something that's a 2019 version of Godzilla from King of the Monsters, I can highly recommend this guy. Just be prepared to pay an interesting price now, because he's very hard to get hold of. So I was lucky yet again to get this guy compared with the others. Okay, we'll see you on the next video. Hopefully you've enjoyed this one. I do apologise if I've ranted and raved about too many things, but like I said, when it comes to content, I don't use a script. I just let my brain and my mouth run. I just speak my heart and what I personally think about what I'm talking about. So if there's any way you see, you know, the video experience improve for you, you know, drop a comment. If you stay with me this far into the video, drop a comment down where I could improve, or something you'd like to see, or whether I could have done something differently or talked about something different. It's all good. I don't mind bad criticism, good criticism. As long as you're giving me some kind of feedback, the video format I make can improve and continue down the line to be even better for you to watch. I'm going to get out of here. I've got a few more reviews to try and make today. So, much love as always. Long live the King.